Good evening. This is 2020 Church, and I'm Pastor Larry Enriquez, and this is Simple Soup Suppers, which is another way of saying 4 weeks until we celebrate the resurrection of our Lord Jesus. We're in that Lenten period of time, and the 4 weeks prior to Easter, we have these simple soups. They're really not that simple, but it's a metaphor in that soup is simple by nature. You just have to have a liquid and throw some things in there that cook in the liquid and eat that. And because there's a lot of water or liquid involved, and again, the poor man's soup may be, a lot of water with a couple tasty mineral rocks in there. You take out the rocks, put in some vegetables, and you have a soup. And it goes a long way. But the point, the metaphor is that let's simplify life and enjoy the things that matter and not let the little things that matter, because, by the way, important things aren't always complicated. Sometimes they're simple and we let them pass. But be attentive. And this Lenten period is be attentive to yourself as God is teaching us and revealing things to us and helping us to be more genuine. And it's also a time to reflect on not just who we are, but in particular for us at our church, what it means to be in relationship with God and with each other. And by that, being intentional about our own lives and what it is in us that may be blocking or hurting relationships, and be better at building relationships, because that's the command of God, that we would love Him first and love others. And so that's what we're doing. Well, simple soup supper. But before that, I just would like to address something from the scriptures that would help us kind of just, again, reflect on what's important. In the Bible, we have the book of Romans, and the book of Romans is a beautiful book. It's really that statement of faith that brings the Old and the New Testament together in the unique way that it does. And it also is a treaty of salvation by looking at the sinfulness of man, the beauty and the wonder of God's holiness, God's reflection to us, and even the things that He's made in natural things, even though they've been distorted by man, God reveals Himself to man. And then in the revelation of our sin, our grave sin, God redeems us by His grace, by doing a work we could not do for ourselves. And so it goes on to speak about how we now in God are new creatures in Him. That's a quote from the Corinthian message, but the same concept is that we're new in Him by the redemption that came through Jesus. Now, I'm telling you essentially the gospel. But then we come to this beautiful chapter, chapter 8, one of my favorite in all the Bible, maybe for some of you. But in Romans chapter 8, that's where it says in that passage that all things work together for good. And we love that passage. We love to believe that, and we ought to. It's the truth. That all things work together for good when you love Jesus and walk with Him. And so that's a complex statement, but also simple. But in light of who we are in Jesus, it's true that all things work together for good. But just before that 8:28 passage is a little scripture I want to look at, so that we just remember that we don't make life too complicated, but in this regard that we simplify and hold on to the simplicity of this truth. So I'm going to go to Romans chapter 8. We're going to specifically look at verse 17. Romans chapter 8, verse 17. Well, to get a sense of the passage, it says that because Jesus has done all this for us, that is, died for us, paid for our sins, made us His children, we belong to Him, that now we have a new life to live, a life that's in the Spirit, not controlled by the old sin flesh nature, but now by the divine nature of Christ that's in us. So we are no longer under this condemning reality of our sin, but in the saving reality of Jesus taking care of our sin. And then it speaks of what's yet to come because we belong to Jesus. And then it comes to this passage where it says that because Christ has done all this for us, and now we have the Spirit of God in us, therefore, brothers, we have an obligation. What's that obligation? To not obey this sinful environment, the old man, the old habits that remain, but to now walk in the Spirit. And then it says this: for you did not receive a spirit that makes you a slave again to fear. Before we were saved, we were subjected to a fear spirit that drove us away from God. But you received the spirit of sonship. Oh. And by him we cry, Abba, Father, or Daddy. The Spirit himself testifies with our spirit that we are God's children. So let's just stop for a second. Something has happened to us as Christians. We've become children of God. We have received a spirit of sonship or daughtership. We've received a spirit that now makes us family with God. And then it says, the Spirit himself testifies with our spirit that we are God's children. Now, if we are children, then we are heirs. What does that mean? It means that what God's estate is now our estate. It's like, all that I own, one day as I pass from this life to the next, whatever little I have will be to my children. They will be, and they are, the heirs of all that I am and possess. So we are heirs of God. So as children, we are heirs of God and co-heirs with Christ, if indeed we share in his sufferings, in order that we may also share in his glory. So as we live on this earth and we deny ourselves and we speak for Christ, and should there be any suffering attached to that, let it be, because we're heirs, we're co-heirs with Christ, and one day we will receive a greater glory. Live in the identity of this. Because you are children of God, you are heirs. What a beautiful little verse in Romans 8:17. If then you are children, then you are heirs. It's a way of God exclaiming the reality that we belong to him, and all that he is belongs to us. Live like that. It's simple. Live like you belong to him, and as a child, you're his heir. Don't live as a pauper. Live as somebody who belongs to God and is filled with the wonder and the beauty of what's yet to come and what you own now by being his child, that you're part of his kingdom. Well, God bless you in this little devotional, but again, it's a metaphor that we're going to look at now, and that is a simple supper, a simple soup supper. So let's cook. I'm going to cook a simple soup, but it's really not that simple, but yet it kind of is. So let's again, metaphorically, cook something that allows us to meditate. You know what? I started cooking because it was therapeutic for me, and it still is. But sometimes if I'm not careful, people have to eat, and I'm going to cook that night. Many nights I cook, and I just start doing things without any really thoughtfulness to it, and it's not so good. I want to cook and be intentional about what I'm doing. So I've been asked to repeat some things so that, again, you could be a better cook. So I'm going to go over some of that real quick with you. A lot of soups and sauces start with this French term mirepoix, which is an aromatic of 3 different vegetables, carrots, celery, and 2 parts onion. So we're going to use that mirepoix, but we're going to start by first putting a little bit of olive oil in this in this pan. And again, soups are fairly easy because they're kind of dump things in a way, you know. And we're going to put in, by the way, you're going to have the recipe for you. So it calls for 4 cups of broth and a pound of chicken. I'm doubling that, so don't worry about it. It doesn't look like a pound of chicken. It looks like it is 2 pounds. And it's going to be 8 cups of broth, not 4. So anyway, that said, the recipe is going to call for 1 pound of chicken, etc., etc. It's going to call for 1 cup of carrots, and there's a little bit more than 1 cup here. There's 2 cups of carrots. So I'm going to put the carrots in. By the way, you can see, isn't it cool? I was at a thrift store, and I found this, and I go, what is that? And as I investigated, I thought, oh, it's one of these. Watch. It cuts carrots that are kind of just cool looking. So it's like, yeah, I love it. It's just a fun thing, and it puts a little pizzazz to cutting. And so we've got some carrots in here. I left them big. Most moi pois, soup starters, everything's cut the same. The celery, the carrot, the onion is all diced pretty much in the same size element. I didn't do it this way. I left the carrots bigger because it's a soup in which I want you to actually have the texture of chewing on a piece of carrot. So that's that. And then we have celery. I left this because it's always good, by the way, to have what we call a trash bowl. All my trash goes over there. Just easy. And it's good to have a station set up before you cook. I just do this with my celery. Doesn't have to be exact. Hold the knife like this. That's so it's not don't do that. It's wobbly. That's safer. And so we just cook like this. And that's how you cook the celery. It's pretty much here. Goes in. By the way, one of my favorite tools, I don't even have it here in front. Oh, here it is this bench scraper. I use it for cutting, for measuring, for picking stuff up. I love this tool. I encourage you to get one, learn to use it. It's fun. And then it calls for a half a cup of onion. I love onions, so I put a whole thing of onion. Once you peel it and take it, I cut from root to root, so it's cut in half from root to root. That way it stays together when you cut it. So and then you just start to chop. Get rid of that. I don't like that piece of. I won't cut it all for you, but that's kind of like how we do the onion. Now, I'm going to layer as I go along, so I put a little bit of salt in there. And then I'm also going to do this. Stir it all around. I'm going to let that cook down for about 5 minutes or so. And then I'm going to add, if I can, let me clean this real quick. I'm going to add garlic. Here's my 3 cloves of garlic, but just briefly. Here's how I do my garlic. I smash it softly so I can peel it easily. If I just smash it like that, this little skin comes off the top. Excuse the dogs, but we live where there's animals. And then that's part of the garlic that's going to go inside this. I always put garlic after it's started to cook because I don't want to burn garlic, because garlic will get bitter if you if you put it in too soon, unless you want that taste. So I put it after these three elements begin to break down a little bit. And there's more liquid. I throw in my garlic. The other day, my little granddaughter Ophelia was helping me cook, and I was having her do the garlic. I said, "Smell your hands, smell your fingers." She goes, "Oh." I go, "Yeah, you smell like garlic. Now you smell like a cook. You have to smell like garlic." Okay, here's more onion. And I didn't throw in, but I'm going to throw it in now. I don't want to hold on to it. So it's more onion I'd normally put, but that's okay. Cool. Now, if I need a little bit more oil in there, I always keep I have an olive oil and vegetable oil. I keep it in these little containers because it's just easy to do that. Okay, and now we put in some liquid. Now this has broken down a little bit. I'd cook this like this for about, maybe 10 minutes or so, just so it softens a little bit. Then I'm going to get 4 cups of broth. I have 8 cups here, but if I was making it for, as the recipe calls, it would be only 4 cups. But here's 8 cups of chicken broth. Now, I made 2 batches of this soup, so just to let you know, I took some chicken broth and chicken bouillon, and I took 4 chicken breasts. I cut them down a little bit, and then I put some slits in them, and then I put them in the broth and where they simmered until they were fully cooked. And so that chicken broth and the chicken that I used actually is what I'm putting back in it. What I cooked the chicken in, what I braised the chicken in, is now coming inside and becoming part of my broth, so I don't miss anything. And now that's going to cook down for just a little bit. I'll turn that up right here. Now, in a little bit, I'm going to put in, when it gets hot, I'm going to put in 4 ounces of cream cheese, so it'll melt down. And this has been softened. It's been out for, an hour or so. So that's softening up, and it's going to melt in there. I'm going to put some cream in here, some chicken, of course, and some cheese and some pasta. So we'll get to that in a minute. But if I can, let me heat this up. And again, seems like a lot of ingredients, but it really isn't complicated. It is simple, but it's still fun. And I can't invite you enough to have somebody over, cook for them, and take your time and make it a loving expression of what you're doing. You know what? This isn't a cheap one. I mean, I wish maybe I should have given you a soup supper that's not expensive. I actually found chicken breast that was very inexpensive, and there's a place where I can get some vegetables that are inexpensive, but nowadays everything seems to be expensive, even vegetables, unless you go to the right place. But using heavy cream isn't cheap. There are certain elements here that make it a pricier soup than I'd like, but again, it's what I've chosen to make today, and you can make it for somebody, and it can be a meal. I also went to Creme Bakery because I'm not a baker per se, and I got some bread to eat with this. But okay, let's move on a little bit. Let's, if I can, put in my 2 pounds of chicken. It's going into this broth. Can you smell it, Rissa?
It smells great.
Because I've been cooking today, I can't smell it per se. It's just like, but usually when you're cooking with onion, with moi pois, the aromatics, the carrots and the celery and the onion and the garlic. That's just a wonderful odor as it is. So I'm gonna throw in my, if you put in the cream cheese too soon, like any creams, they'll separate and all. But it's okay that I put this in because it won't do that. But here's my sour cream's gonna be in there. So I think I pretty much have got the basic soup going on until that sour cream breaks down, and then at the very end I'll put in some cream and some pasta. But I'm going to show you now how to make a simple pasta that can go with spaghetti or your soup. Let's go make some pasta. Another therapy for me is making pasta. Now I have a pasta machine where I can get my pasta, once I roll it out a little bit, and take it through a machine where it flattens it out and makes it see-through if I want to, or make it a little thicker, and I can make spaghetti out of it, or I can make a linguine out of it, or make ribbons out of it, blah, blah, blah. But you don't need a pasta maker. So I'm going to show you what you can do without a pasta maker to make simple pastas. And this is a very simple one. First of all, I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour. You can use semolina flour if you want to, but I use all-purpose flour. Very simple. I have 3 eggs. It's good to have nice farm fresh eggs if you can, but I use 3 large eggs, about a teaspoon or a half a teaspoon of olive oil, and about a half a teaspoon of salt. And I mix it all up right here. Again, pastas and tortillas, they're not hard to make. They're fun to make. You can have your kids help. There are times when my grandchildren help, and they'll help more as they get a little bit older. But that's my 3 eggs, a little bit of salt, a little bit of olive oil, and then I have my 2 cups here of flour. I just make a mound, and then I put this kind of crater in the middle of it, where I will now put my egg mixture. I'm going to turn down, you don't have to move with me, you can look at that, but I'm going to turn this down just a little bit. And so here's my 2 cups of flour and my egg mixture. And then I begin to fold in the flour to mix with the egg. And I just turn it like this. And I go around and bring it in. If you do this enough, and I've done this many times, you just start to incorporate the flour with the egg mixture. In fact, one time I had a dinner and I had, good friends that came to eat with us, and I made an Italian dinner. And so I had already pre-made some of the pasta, but then I rolled it out and had them cut it, and they worked on making the pasta we were going to eat, and it was fun, and they contributed and they enjoyed it, and they had fun because they had a shot at making pasta, but it was kind of a fun way to kind of do a dinner. So now I start to fold in even more. The olive oil and the salt give it flavor. Now it starts to come together. You can feel it becomes more pasty, more doughish, I should say. And don't move, because I'm going to get my bench scraper, which I love. I do that, and I start to bring it together with that. To do that. Now you keep incorporating this together until it becomes a dough. You're not going to add water or any more eggs. It's how it is, and you begin to bring it together. Keep playing with it till it comes. Keep folding it over until it comes together. Fold it over. Fold it over. It really is therapy. I really feel better about life. And you know what? When you think about eggs and flour and salt and some kind of lipid, in this case olive oil, makes pasta, that really is simple when you think about it. Well, some of your finest dishes for some of us is Italian food or pastas. Well, it's not hard to make. So then I begin to knead it by hand. Now, before I get too much into this, you have more to go. I just want to show you that I already have one made that I made earlier. Let me take this apart. I put it in the refrigerator for an hour or so, and then I put it on a lot of flour, and then I cut it into fours, so I have 4 of these. I roll them out so that they're a little bit flat, and I put them through my pasta machine. But I'm not going to use my pasta machine. I don't want to get it out. You probably don't have one. So I took one of these and I rolled it out, and I rolled it so it was about 6 inches wide, about that long, about a foot long. And I made these pasta strands, and I covered them with flour so they wouldn't stick, and that's what this is. It's just pasta. So actually, I can take this pasta and begin to put it inside the soup. And because it's fresh, it doesn't take long to cook. I'm going to have pasta chicken soup. There's the last thing I'm going to do. By the way, I want to encourage you to make pasta. Have fun with it. Invite me over for dinner. I'll tell you how you did it. Okay? Anyway, that's pasta dough, and I'm going to use that, so I'll make pasta for the family. But this pasta is now in here cooking. Turn it up a little bit. This one here, you don't have to move with me, but over here, this one is doing well also. Now remember this, the one over there isn't done because I need to put the cream in there. And remember, the cream cheese is also in there. So it's probably is melted down by now. And I'm going to add a half a cup to a cup of heavy cream, or half and half, and a little butter if I want to. But I just have some cream, and I'm going to add a little bit of cheddar cheese in there, so it makes it luscious, so to speak. So if we can move over here just for a moment, I'm going to do that. I'm going to take my cream, and I'm going to put it in. I can smell it. Smells great. It's going well. And then, because this soup is about done, because the pasta's, I can see the pasta's already, see the pasta? It's done. Now I'm going to throw in a little bit of spinach, because there's a lot of rich stuff in there. Now I'm going to kind of give it that health element. You know what? I'm not a spinach guy. I like all kinds of things, but for some reason spinach, it's a little too iron tasting for me. So right now, there you go. It's wilting down. You can actually even probably turn that off. Over here, I'm going to let that cook, or rather just simmer, until I finish it with some pasta and some spinach. Well, here's the finished soup right here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but if I should get a bowl out, but it smells great. And again, I look for it. I love the chew of pasta. and it's inside this soup. Well, not so simple but fun supper to remind us of taking time in this life to enjoy the things that are before us. Cook for somebody that you love, or whoever. When you cook for somebody, choose to love them. Cook for them. Enjoy the time with the Lord. Enjoy remembering that you're an heir, that you belong to Him. So enjoy the life that you have before you. Enjoy not worrying because you're His heir. Well, God bless you on this first Simple Soup Supper of 3 more to come. God bless you. I love you. I hope to see you at church this Sunday. Go in peace.